Space Action Podcast with your hosts, Chris Carson and D.C Chris.
Welcome to Space Action Podcast, the 40th episode edition. I'm D.C Chris.
I'm Chris Carson.
And today we are celebrating 40 episodes of this podcast.
Jesus Christ.
Over a year at this point.
Yeah.
By taking a retrospective look at a 40-year-old classic.
That classic being Ridley Scott's Alien. So, when did you first see Alien?
Jesus. The funny thing is, I knew the mythos of Alien way before I saw the movie.
Just familiar with the design and stuff?
MGM Studios, 1991, the cart ride. You sat on the backlot tour and they brought you through the different movies, quote unquote. Mm-hmm. And Alien was one of them. You went down the corridor of the Nostromo with Ripley as she was holding Jinxie and shit.
I remember that.
With the what do you call it, animatronic. And I remember just being like, what the fuck is that thing? That black monster thing is terrifying. I loved the design like whenever I was a kid. That was my first introduction to it.
That's funny because that was mine as well.
Oh, yeah?
I remember walking into this ride and seeing that there was this little model of this weird-looking ship called the Nostra something, and I couldn't pronounce it because I was just little. I was like, what is this ship? It's so weird. And then being fucking terrified at that section of the, like, what is, there's fire and alarms?
So cool.
Yeah.
And just, I remember the Ripley model, she's all sweaty, and they have her head whipping back and forth like she's looking for it. It's so effectively done.
Is it still there?
No, that MGM backlot tour, I guarantee, is gone by now. They got, it might have, no, the one in Hollywood burnt down.
Yeah.
The one in Florida should still be there, but I think they tore it down by now.
Because it was connected to Universal?
MGM.
MGM.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe it wasn't the same thing then. Because if I recall correctly, it was either at a Disney or Universal. Disney
MGM is part of Disney World.
It's part of the Disney World.
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
It was exactly the same thing.
Yeah, definitely. But like, I don't know. I remember the first time I saw the actual movie. It was probably like when I was in my 20s, to be honest with you.
Yeah, probably me too. I don't think I saw them young. Because it scared me too much as a little kid.
Exactly. Like, I remember I was a Star Wars kid, and the idea of seeing people getting torn apart in space, I was like, unless they're tauntauns, I don't want to see that shit. And like...
You know what? 1997 is when Alien Resurrection came out, and I'd seen the movies by that point, because I wanted to see Resurrection, so I would have been 15. So
I saw Resurrection before Alien.
Okay, really?
Unfortunately. I was still invested after watching it,
It's
too.
like watching the prequels first.
Literally.
Going through them numerically.
Well, I still have a huge crush on Winona Ryder, so that was really the reason
that worked. I remember I went to the theater to see, with a friend of mine, to see Alien Resurrection, and they wouldn't let us in because we weren't 18.
Really?
Yeah. They actually pulled a let's see your ID guys. And we were like, what? For a movie?
Interesting.
And they wouldn't let us in, so we ended up seeing, fucking, weirdly enough, Crash.
How is that any better? Listen, you kids are too old to watch something messed up like a chest burster. How about you just watch Matt Dillon as a cop finger fuck?
Yeah.
James Newton.
Or James Spader fuck a leg wound.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm thinking of the fucking...
The original Crash.
That's way worse.
I know. I think that was the same time.
I love the idea of the guy at the ticket sales booth folding his arms and like, job well done.
Yeah.
Stop those kids from seeing something fucked up.
I guess there's no real like overt violence or anything in Crash. There's just it's just weird and atmospheric and strange.
I'd say it's psychologically a little bit more fucked up.
100%. But people don't care about that. They'll let you watch, Glenn get his head beaten in on The Walking Dead, but if you see a nipple,
that's
not allowed.
That's game over.
Yeah.
But I remember the first time I saw Alien. What I love about that movie is the slow build. The first time I saw it...
It's the king of the slow build.
And this was long before Prometheus, and we didn't know what the space jockey was.
Yeah.
The shot of them crawling into that chamber, your brain's just like, that's not even the weirdest part of this.
Yeah.
I know there's something else coming, but what the fuck is that thing?
Let's talk about that for a moment. When it still was a time in our history when we didn't know what the space jockey was.
I remember
How nice that was. How mysterious and awesome.
I remember going on a GeoCities site back in the day and typing in,
GeoCities.
right? Where it was just
Yeah.
like simple text and like off-center images.
Yeah.
And someone said it was just this is the model. Hey, here's a cool trivia thing. For that shot to make the space jockey look even bigger when they pull back as they crawl through the hole, those aren't actually the actors. That's not John Hurt and what's his
little
face?
puppets, or
It's fucking his kids.
Oh,
Ridley Scott
yeah,
dressed his
yeah.
kids up just to make it look way, way
I
bigger.
heard about that.
Yeah, which is hilarious. Which, if you look the way they're moving, they kind of look like little
Then,
kids.
I guess, like, if not knowing that, your brain would excuse that as puffy spacesuit.
And also, like, you're in this massive, terrifying chamber.
Yeah, you're
like,
just looking at
Yeah, I'd be
everything.
moving awkwardly as hell.
Did Giger do any designs for any of the other aliens? I don't think so, did he?
Ooh, they gave him credit, but I don't think he... Because
It was
Cameron
always based
designed
on
the
his
Queen.
design, yeah.
So,
And he gave them those ridges on their heads.
yeah.
Because it was just a
they gave them
dickhead. The original one was literally a
just
dickhead.
did a giant cockhead.
Yeah, which is what the original... Because the original poster is from Giger's Necronomicon, which was like 10 years earlier or something, and then he just... Ridley Scott saw that and went, that's my alien!
Right.
My fixed British accent.
Oh, man, kill me here, because I'm not going to remember the fucking name of the writer of Alien.
I have no idea.
But I remember reading a quote from him on Wikipedia where he said, the whole thing it's alien rape. Like, that's... We're not going to lie, like, bury the lead. That's totally what this movie
His
is
little
about.
tail goes up like the twigs in Evil Dead.
Lambert at the end of the movie, it's effed up, and the director's cut. You hear her like violently gasping and shit. And you're like, "What in God's name is this actually in the film?"
So was the idea that he used his tail to impregnate them with a...
Well, the idea, like when they originally wrote it, it was based on this wasp, I believe, in Australia, and what it does is that when it pricks you with its barb, it paralyzes you, and I think it might kill
He
you.
paralyzed her via the vagina?
I think it just gets you, period, or whatever. Anyways, it lays the
No,
eggs
Lambert.
on you.
Did Lambert get paralyzed via the vagina? We'll have to call Ridley. If Ridley Scott, are you listening? Can you call into the show?
Lord, that's brutal. That tail looks gnarly as hell.
Yeah.
But,
But in the late 70s, early 80s, things like to rape things a lot.
A lot.
Trees,
Trees,
aliens.
anything that looked horribly protruding.
Yeah.
I think I Spit on Your Grave as a scene too, where it gets kind of like she gets
Isn't that the whole point of that she's brutally gang raped?
brutally gang raped like repeatedly. But I think that was around the same period. I think it's just kind of like the whole we're trying to make a voice for women thing, but we're men in the
Right.
80s. We don't know how.
What defines a lady? Rape? Babies?
Exactly.
Shoes?
We don't know how to write depth for a character, so we're just going to write what we think
Wait,
empowers a woman.
I think you just described the Captain Marvel.
A little bit.
And a little bit of Endgame.
Just a little bit. It's a little bit there.
And if reports are correct, X-Men Dark Phoenix too.
Oh yeah, we have Dark Phoenix is out this
Yeah,
weekend.
we're not. If anyone who listens to all our podcasts, you'll probably notice we haven't done a lot of topical movies because nothing out there is really interesting enough to us to do, and everyone's already bitching about these movies.
Yeah.
So what more is there to say?
It was kind of hard to jump in on that one. And also the fact that, like, I don't know, man. Like, I'm not sitting through Detective Pikachu.
No,
I know y'all love
no.
Pokemon, but like, it's so not my speed unless you want to listen to two old men be like, what,
Yeah.
for an hour?
Why is Ryan Reynolds a thing that shoots lightning? No, I didn't even watch Pokemon as a kid, so that would be extra for me. Just being like, I don't fucking know what any of this is. I'm so confused.
I'd probably
I don't
just
care.
fucking wander off and start talking about how much I love Who Framed Roger Rabbit, because that's what that movie looked like to me.
Pretty much. Or we just circle back and start talking about Alien for some reason.
Speaking of Alien,
Yeah.
another fun thing about Lambert in terms of improvisation, you know, that's maybe it's only in the director's cut, but there's a scene whenever Ash is in the bay after he gets that fucking thing on his face, and Lambert comes in the room and she fucking slaps Ripley.
Oh, that's the director's cut.
Yeah, so fucking hard. And if you look at Sigourney Weaver's reaction, she's legit mad because
Yeah.
Ridley Scott, I think originally she was supposed to push her into the glass.
She gave her a slap.
And then Ridley's like, fucking slap her in the scene.
Oh, he snuck in?
Yeah, he was like, hit her. I want to see what her reaction will be. And if you look at her face, she's ready to throw down. Like, she gets really mad.
Well, that's another I think I mentioned this on another podcast once, but since we're talking about Alien, the fact that at one point John Hurt, because apparently John Hurt was almost impossible to work with when he was younger. He was very up his own ass.
Okay.
Before he aged and got a little more passive. And he was just being a complete dick on set. And since Ridley Scott couldn't yell at John Hurt, because that was the big name actor they got for their tiny little movie of unknown director, writer, everything, he would take it out on Sigourney Weaver. he would just go, because she was a little unknown. So it was like an interview, I think, for some release, some DVD or Blu-ray release, where Sigourney Weaver was talking about how Ridley Scott would just yell at her and then later be like, that was for John, I just can't yell at John. I can yell at you.
I see what you're saying. So he'd be like, Jesus Christ, hit your goddamn mark.
Yeah. Yeah.
So sorry.
But he was just screaming in her face. So she said it was quite traumatic.
Oh, jeez. And Ridley Scott, like, seems the type of dude. He's just a drunk old British man.
I really hate Ridley Scott. There's like 2 movies, Alien and Gladiator. I can't, and Blade Runner, even though I challenge anyone who talks about how much they love Blade Runner to actually sit down and watch Blade Runner in one sitting. Like, you always end up shutting it off about 30 minutes in and then going back to it maybe. Like, it's a beautiful movie.
Yeah.
But goddamn, it's hard to get through that movie.
I dug The Martian, but I'm not saying it's like, is it like the be-all, end-all, like, oh, no, this definitive of his career? Nah, it was oddly just like an adaptation.
Weird comedy, almost.
Weird comedy, watching Matt Damon turn poo into potatoes.
Yep. And then I vaguely remember a Ridley Scott movie called Bandits. Is that ringing any bells?
Bandits.
It was like, I think it was old Billy Bob.
Okay.
And
William Robert Thornton.
And maybe Bruce Willis, but it was about like bank robbers or something. I just have this vague recollection of Ridley Scott's Bandits being everywhere in the late 90s.
Okay.
And just not understanding it at all. Because I watched it and was like, this is atrocious. But I have no memory of it. Like, that's how bad it was. That it was almost like, again, I'm going to double down on my Captain Marvel bitch slapping. Because now that it's out on home video, there's been ads and stuff for it. And I'm like, I don't remember any of this. She fights Jude Law at the end. Like, it all escaped my brain immediately.
I hate to say it, but like it really did have like the same lasting impact as like Ant-Man and the Wasp.
Right.
Where I'm like, yeah, I remember it was intrinsic to the story, but
yeah.
if you asked me like what was relevant in those movies that didn't have any relevance in Endgame, I couldn't tell you.
Yeah.
Couldn't tell you.
Ant-Man 1, I'd be hard-pressed to tell you what happened, and even in Ant-Man 1.
And that's not me like trying to shit on Captain Marvel. I was rewatching Iron Man 2 recently, and I was like, I don't remember any of this.
No.
Why would Howard Stark hide the fucking template for a new element in the schematic of a fucking park? I'm like, this makes no sense.
Why does shooting a giant laser at something create a new element?
My favorite part is 20 seconds before that, Jarvis is like, sir, this is an impossible element to synthesize. And Tony's like, montage. And he just does it. And I'm like, wait.
That would be great if he actually said montage.
That would have
been awesome. Just did it.
I don't know. I was rewatching that movie like, this is perplexing. Like, as much as people have raised Marvel up on a pillar, and rightfully so, like 80% of it's awesome.
I'd say it's more 50-50, to be honest with you.
How many bad ones? Okay, wait, there's 22 movies.
Even though this is we'll get back to Alien, we swear.
That's good. It's coming back around.
But ultimately, it's like Iron Man is great. Iron Man 2, not very good. The first Thor is not
the first
very
round
great.
of like. Okay, let me see. I'm trying to think what I would be like. Nah. Iron Man 2, Thor. I like the first Captain America. It's not amazing, but I do like it. Hulk, for sure. Avengers 2 ages pretty well now with Endgame. Yeah. I totally get what Joss Whedon was bitching about. He's like, dude, I do not want to have to put all these goddamn tentpoles in my movie. But when you see where the payoffs were, I'm like, I don't mind
very
it.
bloated. I just remember being very
It
bloated.
is. It 100% is, but because you realize when you take a step back from it, that movie is making a huge pivot point towards Thanos.
For the bigger picture. That's probably when they figured it out.
Yeah, because he pops at the end with the gauntlet in that movie.
Yeah.
So,
he
does.
I'll do it myself.
Exactly.
In 8 or so years.
Exactly. But, like, this is an aside. Like, I was watching it right before Endgame, and there's a part where Thor goes into the electric jacuzzi, and he has the visions of the stone over a cloud that looks like a gauntlet. But my favorite is when he sees the vision of all the dead Asgardians, Idris Elba's like, you killed us all. His eyes go like lightning, like they do in Ragnarok. He shoots lightning from within himself, exactly like Ragnarok. It hits an Asgardian, and when they die, they turn to dust, and it floats away.
Do you think that any of that was intentional, or do you think they retconned it?
Either or. What I love about the Marvel-verse is that, unlike a lot of sci-fi franchises that will just, without naming names, keep adding new shit just to sell toys, what I like about the Marvel-verse is for example, Endgame, everything's very inside baseball. If you look at all of Thanos', other than those big gorilla walking dudes, all of Thanos' army from the end of Endgame is just pre-existing stuff. All the weapons from Spider-Man Homecoming is just them being like, all right, we can take this. They're very self-referential in the way that's like the original Star Wars trilogy was, which I like about them. So I think it was just them being like, we can add new stuff, but it all has to stem from something from a pre-existing movie.
Right, yeah. So just keep that in mind when writing it. And also Age of Ultron joins Game of Thrones in its misnaming, because the Age of Ultron lasted about 3 days.
About a week.
And the Great War was one battle.
Yeah, and the thing, when I finished that movie, it's the idea that Ultron's big plan is to make a meteor.
Yeah, right.
I'm like, you control every single...
You just release noxious gas from every nuclear plant on the planet.
You could just stop the water treatment.
Yeah.
You could just land planes into people's houses.
You could hack into like one of these South Pole research centers for deadly viruses.
Yeah.
And just release them.
Just permanently shut the power grid down and watch them all kill themselves.
Yeah.
Like, that would be it.
That's what I was expecting. Like, I know that they just took the name from the damn comic line.
Yeah.
But I was Age of Ultron. He's a computer. He's going to be messing with the grid. Like, it's going to be like Superman 3.
If they did like a 5 years later, like they did in Endgame, where it's like they've been battling this guy for a while, because like how do you
make it 6 months later?
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
But anyways, we're talking about Alien. We kind of went off on a tangent as we tend
Having
to do.
said that, though, that franchise never did it. Having said that about Marvel, Alien never had. I don't think it was ever meant to be a franchise.
No, not at all.
The first one,
it was a response to Star Wars.
Yes.
And then that was all it was ever meant to be.
And horror movies. Because that movie, if you watch the first one, is totally like, we're a bunch of teenagers driving in a van.
Yeah.
Hey, what's that weird house on the left? And there's a monster inside that slowly kills all of us.
And then James Cameron went, I can do a better job, and just remade the movie.
I love the idea of James Cameron just looking at the poster and then slowly drawing an S at the end and being
flopping
like,
his pencil.
Genius. I'm gonna make a weird sexy alien and then we're off to the races.
I will say one thing. I like, they're neck and neck, but I prefer Alien to Aliens just because of the mythos of the alien. I prefer more, and I prefer the hardcore horror of it rather than the action beats.
Yep.
I like the idea that one of these things would, even if you had 100 Marines, one of these things would kill them all.
Yeah.
Whereas in Aliens, they kind of take them out like they're stormtroopers.
Yeah. I would also chalk that up because in the first one it's implicated. If you shoot this alien, it will burn through the whole ship and we're all dead.
Did we ever find out?
In Aliens, it's like this massive nuclear complex that's been fucked already. So like, blow the shit out of them. It's fine.
It's gonna be acid. But in Alien, did the alien have acid blood?
The facehugger does.
Just the facehugger did.
You never see the alien bleed.
See, I always wonder if the intent was that...
I think it was.
Because he's in a vulnerable state, latching on to impregnate eggs into people, the facehugger, so it would make sense.
Yeah.
And then the xenomorph, I don't think they ever even suggested he gave...
No, you never really see it get wounded until Ripley shoots it with a harpoon gun at the very end of the movie.
Spews everything everywhere, but it's not really burning into the hull. And I really like the alien queen. Again, it's I wrestle with it because as cool as the alien queen is, I don't like how terrestrial the aliens become when they're just an ant colony.
They're just bugs.
I really love the idea that like a facehugger is a reconstituted spinal column because the people are just turned into eggs. That's body horror.
That's disturbing as shit. And also it's like it's the perfect again, like Ash says, it's the perfect organism.
Yeah.
I really do love how that movie is very Faustian in the sense of like it's a deal with the devil. Wayland Yutani wants this thing to weaponize it so badly they'll put innocent civilians at risk. You shake hands with the devil, a demon will fucking follow you home. And that whole metaphor of just like it's this black organism that's just complete killing power.
No eyes,
unstoppable. You don't even know what it's made out of. Is it metallic? Is it organic? But on that note, before all the fucking Prometheus shit, how the fuck did that company know that thing even existed?
Well, I was just about to mention that. The fact that, because they say that Ash was put on the crew at the last second. So no one trusts him because he was put on right before this mission. But then why did they do their mission then? If Ash was put on because the company knew that they wanted them to go get this alien, why were they on their way back from their trucker run and all in hypersleep? Why wouldn't they have done it on the way to their trucker run? You know what I mean? Like they're on their way home.
Yeah, because you can't really get them out of hypersleep to hear the message in the first place.
Right. So if Ash was put on simply to get them to LV-426, why did he wait until it was like, he just took 6 months vacation with them and like loaded up some cargo and hung out, got to know them all?
He made that sweet, what do you call it, corner with all the fucking
All the
porno
porn
cutouts.
He's just stuffing magazines down their throat while they're sleeping. That was another rape thing. That movie's full of rape.
It is. It literally is. Yeah.
So
yeah.
why would he use a magazine to rape Ripley?
I've looked that up, and it's a lot of people have chalked up because there's a weird moment in that movie where Ripley's going for the door. She talks to Mother, sees that all crew is expendable, and then Ash pops up next to her. Her nose starts to bleed.
Oh yeah.
And then Ash starts to bleed that milky shit, and that's where his eyes roll back into his head. I think it's implicated at that point, like when she pushed him into the wall, he somehow malfunctions at that point.
Why was her nose bleeding?
I looked it up. I think there was an extended altercation, or I don't know. It never really made sense to me.
Ridley Scott is objectively the worst. So maybe he was just like out of his mind on coke, being like, no, to symbolize vaginal blood. Why? Shut up. Like, who knows what his thinking was?
But yeah, it's such a weird moment. The part I love the most is whenever Lambert tries to grab him from behind, and he just grabs Lambert's chest.
Oh, yeah, he goes,
and that performance, the way he starts screaming, I'm like, imagine an android as strong as Rutger Hauer and Blamer just grabbing your chest and squeezing it, like
just
that,
breaking a rib or your chest plate,
or just pulling a chunk of your chest out. Like that just sounds horrifying.
Can we talk briefly about just how horrible Ridley Scott is in general, because he came back and just destroyed the mythology of Alien?
See, and that's...
Because I really hate those movies. I don't find anything good about them.
No, I'm not. I have nothing good to say about those two. To be fair, though, they did kind of steer that franchise in a weird direction. But I don't think it was his right to be like, I want it back.
Right.
It's mine.
How
I'm
come
going to rewrite
James
it.
Cameron didn't make Prometheus Eye? Like, why did he get to do all of the prequels? Why is it Ridley Scott's baby suddenly?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, why did you completely not give a shit for like 30 years
Yeah.
and 3 movies, and then all of a sudden you're like, no, it's mine.
Yeah.
I'm going to rewrite it.
I really like the way they were going, though. Like, kudos to Fox, at least, because they learned from Star Wars that none of them wanted to make it, and then all of a sudden it was their biggest movie ever. That they just said, Ridley Scott, make a movie. And then they said, James Cameron, make a movie. And then they said, fucking
Fight Club. Fincher, David Fincher.
David Fincher, go make a movie. And then they're like, oh, we don't like it. So that's when they started to fuck with him. But then that did so poorly that for Alien Resurrection, they said, Luc Besson, go make a movie.
Yeah.
And that was also horrible. But at least there's the stamp of originality to these movies. They don't feel like a one big studio note.
And that's what I like about the Alien franchise. It has, with the exception of the last 2, found a weird way to exist as different films, which is kind of rare for a movie franchise. Like, other than maybe all the Bond movies that kind of are tonally the same. I'm trying to think of one that you watch and like every movie's almost different. The first one's a haunted house movie. The second one's a straight up action army movie. You know what I mean?
The
Like,
third one is back to kind of the spirit of the original, but all about religion.
it's like this, it's got like this weird, in the same way that Mad Max has all these social religious subtext to it, that one really leans on like, it's this weird meta world that's a metaphor for our world.
Do you remember the original script was going to be, the studio executives at Fox said, again, not ahead of their time. They were like, we can't keep this franchise going with a female lead. Women don't come to see these movies. Which, again, in the 80s, women didn't go see those fucking movies.
But also the thing, I don't think the sales were predicated on women. If you had a female
No.
lead, I think guys would have showed up anyways.
Anyway, but they wanted rid of Ripley. That's why she died in Alien 3. And then the original script was that they were on a wooden sphere planet. Was that it? They were all monks. And they were on a wooden sphere planet, and they thought Ripley was the devil because women are the devil in the Bible.
Okay.
And she brought the xenomorph with her. And then that was the note from the studio being like, no, make it more alien-like, make them criminals on a prison planet. But they took
Tywin Lannister.
Yeah, he is in there. he has sex with Ripley and then dies horribly.
Does he ever have sex with Ripley?
And I think they do end up doing it.
It's been so long since I've seen 3.
Yeah, it's something.
My favorite.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say my favorite thing about 3, because 2, like you said earlier, 1 and 2 are neck and neck for being like my favorite.
Just personal preference is which one you like.
Totally. And one of the things that makes 2 so strong is the beautiful mother-daughter story of like, I love in the director's cut, you see Ripley lost her daughter of natural causes. She out-aged her while she was lost in space. Newt lost her family because they got eaten by xenomorphs.
Horrible monsters.
Yeah, and they find each other. And when she fucking calls her mommy at the end, when she sees her, it gets me every fucking time. And she dies in the first 5 minutes of the third movie.
See, and I'm going to invoke, yet again, I'm going to invoke Game of Thrones and say, I think that's appropriate for that horrible, vicious franchise.
For that world.
For them to have died, but it was just executed so badly that it kind of ruined it.
If it was like in the first act, like she was on the planet, and I don't know.
Or even if she died the exact same way, but then the movie was fantastic, then you'd be like, oh, okay, that's great. But the movie was so bad that you look back and go, okay, well, what's everything that's bad about it? Let's start right at the beginning with killing off the characters from the last one. But have you ever seen, it's like called the assembly edit, where it's David Fincher's original assembly edit of the movie.
No.
Fox finally released it for I think it was the 30th anniversary 10 years ago.
Sounds about right, yeah.
It's actually pretty watchable. I think that it's far below Alien and Aliens, but I think it elevates it from like Kingdom of the Crystal Skull to Temple of Doom. You know what I mean? Like
fair.
It is better.
And I could see that, just like studio was noting it to death, and he was just a young up and coming music video director. So he's probably like, cut what you want, this ain't my baby. Like,
he apparently was so frustrated. It took him how long to do a studio movie after that?
I forgot. He publicly apologized for that movie.
Yeah.
He was just like, I'm so sorry for Alien 3.
It's interesting though, because the assembly edit comes with a making of, which again, making ofs in the past were so awesome and honest, and you actually heard about how horrible it was to make the movie instead of just jerking everyone off. And he just talks about how he had to like go in for exhaustion and stress because the studio executives were just on him constantly and second guessing every decision he made, every step he made, rewriting things on the day. The cast was furious, the crew was furious, everything was getting jumbled around, and eventually he was just like, do whatever you want. He wanted to take his name off. He wanted it to be an Alan Smithy. And either it was originally released in its first theatrical run as an Alan Smithy movie before people understood what that meant. And for those of you who don't know, if directors are so ashamed of what they've made, they put the credit Alan Smithy. And I honestly don't remember if they said that the first theatrical run was Alan Smithy and it became David Fincher later. But he wanted his name off it, and they wouldn't ultimately let him.
I mean, I feel bad for that, because that's the one thing when I watch that movie, I feel bad for that guy. Just the production value of those sets, they're so huge. If I was him and I walked on the set of that, I'd be like, oh, this is a problem. This is a massive $1 million franchise coming off the heels of one of the most successful sequels ever. Like, fuck.
Yeah. And then we devolved into Alien versus Predators for a while.
Hey, I forgot about those.
Sorry.
I even watched AVP before I saw the Shane Black Predators.
Really?
I did a revisit. It's pretty fucking terrible, but like it's good. Like Saturday, I'm hungover. I just want to watch something ridiculous terrible.
I agree. It's watchable schlock, both of them. Because I even kind of like the second one, where I
remember the second one.
The second one is infinitely worse, but in some ways that makes it pushes it even more towards like an Ed Wood production.
Gotcha.
So it's just so stupid. Like the whole movie starts with like a father and his son out hunting deer, and then the father gets face huggered by a random alien, and then the kid gets face huggered, and it's just such schlock. And then the kid wakes up to see his father dying, and then he dies.
Oh God! Wait, I rewatch this now.
No, it's one of those so bad it's good. I think for me, both of the AVPs, because especially when the Pralien, I love that.
The Predalien.
We made back in the day. Me and my friends would joke about how after Alien versus Predator, I hope there's a Pralien. And then at the end of the movie, there's a Pralien, and then the next movie's all about the Pralien.
All about the Pralien.
And I love when he sticks his little face mandibles on the pregnant women
and starts injecting them,
puking them.
That part reminded me straight up of Alien, of like, oh, you're back to
fucking gross.
And I think they use practical effects, like they're actual
belly swirling.
Yeah, so when you see them moving, you're like, Jesus, that looks like you can't do that with CGI.
No. So yeah, I those movies are great in a horrible way.
I kind of have a soft spot for the first one, especially because I remember the second one. At one point, aliens fighting Predator in a footlocker. I'm like, this is the silliest thing I have ever.
Stupid.
Two of the greatest creatures the universe knows boxing in a mall. I'm like,
Footlocker gave him like $20 million.
So wrong.
It's like Superman taking off, and they frame it around the Sears logo in Man of Steel. They're all looking up, and Superman flying away. It's just Sears. I'm like, oh Jesus,
subtle.
Yeah.
But what I love about the first one is someone, I was one of those conspiracy theorist nuts who thoroughly believes that the Mayans were communicating with somebody to fucking build airfields and to have like a devout knowledge of the solar system.
Also, that Mayan temple.
Yes,
Antarctic,
the whole fact that they roped in that one conspiracy theorist notion of like Cambodians, Egyptians, Mayans all built pyramids in similar structures, similar styles across thousands of years and hundreds of thousands of miles. How?
But it was the Predator.
It was the Predators. When they show, I love the design of that pyramid where it's like 6 different architectural styles merged into one. It's really cool.
When he blows up in the first shot, right? When the aliens get too insane and he goes.
Yeah, he nukes it.
He nukes the whole thing.
Yeah. But other than that, like it's nothing to write home about. It didn't really add anything to the franchise.
And again, I don't want people to think that like I enjoy these movies like that. I enjoy them for a completely different reason.
I also don't want anyone else to think. Because I was thinking about this about the podcast is that we wax philosophical about fucking like B- Saturday afternoon movies. I'm not holding all these on a pedestal like this is top shelf fucking sci-fi. This AVPR. I love them because they're just so bad sometimes.
It's so bad.
It's like, dude, I love Bad Boys 2 just because it's so bad.
Yeah, and this is like Bad Boys 2 for me, but with the Alien and Predator in it. So it's worth it just to watch the design of the suits.
Yeah,
alone.
I agree. Yeah.
It was like,
AVPR, isn't it like 80 minutes long? It's like
it's really short.
It's really, really short.
So it doesn't make sense because the first one is Alien versus Predator, and the second one is Aliens versus Predator. Even though there were multiple aliens,
I think the second one's
first one.
Alien versus Predator Requiem.
It's Aliens versus Predator Requiem.
Are you sure?
Yeah, there's a Requiem in there, but they added the S to Aliens, which confused me because there were multiple aliens in the first one.
Correct.
So why didn't they just call it Aliens versus Predator?
Well, you see, Chris.
Now that we have like 3 movies all called Shaft, you think that they'd be able to...
This was back in the day of the subtitle. Remember, like everything was just like...
We're back in the day of the subtitle.
Are we back in the back of the subtitle?
Marvel brought them back, man. Now everything sequels just got fucking subtitles now.
Is it?
Wonder Woman 1984. All the Marvel movies don't have numbers. They just have subtitles except Iron Man.
I guess they don't have numbers anymore.
No. Avengers Age of Ultron, Avengers Endgame. Avengers blah, blah, blah. Infinity War.
But I don't know, man. Like, in term, like that brings me to fucking Prometheus.
Ugh.
My favorite was like, they're like, Prometheus! No, you guys... Alien Covenant! So, like, let's rope him back in with the title.
Oh, it doesn't, like, see, for me, Prometheus and Alien Covenant are the type of bad I don't like. The type of bad that think they're smarter than they are.
It's trying to be smart, and that's what I hate about those movies.
Trying to be something big and lofty, and you're a fucking space bug murdering people.
Lindelof.
I hate Damon Lindelof.
God.
He ruined Star Trek.
Damn it.
He ruined Alien.
It's always the same tropes, too, of just, like, character stupidity. I'm like, I can't forgive character stupidity.
I don't understand.
Don't smell the spore on the alien planet in 2 movies.
Yeah.
2 fucking movies. Oh, unbelievable.
Like, they go down to the... I just love the idea that they don't even check the air. They're just like, seems good by smelling it.
Smells like oxygen.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the smell of oxygen, all right.
Is there no other way to test? We can get hundreds of miles across the solar system, but we can't have any way of testing.
You should get that guy to just smell patients in hospitals to find out if they have cancer or AIDS.
You know what my favorite part is of Prometheus? They wake up from the cryo sleep in the orbit of... It's not LV-426. It's
like
planet.
LV blah, 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 blah.
Yeah. And they brief them. They're like, you're here on a mission to go down the Earth. We've received contact, blah, blah, blah.
Almost the same as AVP.
Yeah, pretty much.
Pretty much.
But at least in AVP there was a briefing. If I was on that spaceship at that point, I'm like, you unfroze me from cryosleep all the way from Earth, 20 seconds from a planet, and without telling me what the fuck we're doing.
This is why we're here.
This is why we're here to go down and look at Spooky Temple. No. That's some shit you tell me before I sign up for the mission.
Wasn't there like one line of like, you've all been compensated quite well in the worst old man makeup ever
I was about
made.
to say, if it was delivered by fucking what's-his-face, Guy Pearce. I was so distressed. You're Ridley Scott. Half of your friends are old British white men. Why didn't you just get one of them to play him?
Yeah, I doubt at the time he was thinking of sequels with flashbacks, because then what's the other Alien Covenant opens with a flashback. But do you really think that was in mind?
No.
Why was he?
My favorite is on the IMDb trivia page. It says something like, to study for his role as Mr. Wayland, Guy Pearce walked the streets of London studying the movements of elderly men. I'm like,
really?
That's not research. I do that when I'm waiting for the bus. That's not the same thing.
Is that why he's overacting so terribly?
Yes, hello.
He's doing that classic mistake of playing old over the top.
He's playing old the way like a high schooler would portray an old man in like a play.
Here's a little trick for you, young actors. The only thing to play old is just play yourself exhausted.
You know who played a good old man?
That's it.
Fucking Chris Evans, man.
Yeah.
Like, that wasn't him. They didn't change his voice at all. That's just him, doing the voice. And he fucking nailed it, man.
And he'd walked the line, though, like an inch over the line, and then you're doing the old man voice.
Sam!
Yeah.
I have something for you, Sam.
And it didn't hurt that they digitally made his neck skinny and his shoulders little and everything, so...
That was a good blend of, like, I like it when they had to do a bit of prosthetics and then they smooth it out with the makeup. It looks good, man.
And his body looked great because he looked frail and tiny, even though I never imagined Captain America would get tiny like that. You think those muscles would be for life.
Oh, man, I
feel like Arnold is still huge,
like, you know,
right?
you shrink when you get older. I imagine...
Just shrinking and shrinking.
Yeah, imagine like a t-shirt. If you blew and stretched it out to that size and then just let it relax, I imagine you're this tiny little...
Does he have skin removal surgery? Is he
underneath that gray coat, like he's got tits that just sag down to his fucking...
Oh, Jesus. But, 1979 Alien. It, I don't know, I guess it revolutionized... there was a wave of people ripping off Alien afterwards, but I'm not sure it did anything that we've never seen before, other than the design of the alien itself.
I would say, without Alien, you don't get to The Thing, or...
But The Thing was from a 1959 movie based on a book.
But, like, the visual aesthetic of, like, just, like, that body horror, like... One of the most of things...
No, I totally agree he brought the visual thing to it, but other than that...
I mean, but that alone to me is, like, that's pretty noteworthy.
Because it's Jason Voorhees in space as an alien.
Pretty much.
And those movies have been around forever.
Just, like, totally crystallizing the idea of body horror. Like, imagine you're on a vacation in a foreign land, and your foot starts to hurt. You take your shoe off, remove your sock, and there's just a fucking gnat, like...
And then birthing things.
Yeah, coming out of your foot. That's one of those things that just scars you psychologically.
Oh, as someone who's had a spider lay eggs in his forehead, then, yeah.
Oh, tell the story of that.
I think I've told it on the podcast.
I don't think you have. I would have remembered that.
I just had a giant bump on my head. I didn't know what the hell it was, and it got bigger and bigger and bigger. And then finally... And everyone always doesn't believe I did this. I was just like, I'm cutting this thing open because what the fuck is it? And I didn't even feel it as I just put a little hole in it and then popped out an egg sac out of my forehead. So some spider had laid eggs under my skin.
Oh no.
So can you imagine one day if I hadn't done that, all these thousands of baby spiders just escaping from my skin?
Just imagine you see them moving underneath your skin.
No,
like,
there's still an egg sac.
No, but I'm saying, like, if they hatched, you just see them fanning out from a spot underneath your...
digging in, eating my brain. No, I was absolutely horrifying.
So... They turned that into a 2-hour movie.
Yeah.
Just the idea of, like, what the fuck? What the fuck?
What is this thing?
You're not really given any explanation as to what's happening.
Nope.
You're just dropped in the middle of this story.
That's what's so great about it.
Yeah, and, like, again, in terms of, like, show it, don't tell it, the idea of this thing is growing. We pick up the fucking snake skin. So right away, we're just like, oh, not only it's kind of lizard-like, it sheds its skin, but it's growing.
Yeah.
2, I love that opening shot because the Nostromo is this tiny little ship that's hauling this massive facility. So you're like, ew, it could be anywhere in there, and it's getting bigger. Like that's like this. The thought of that is so effective in that movie.
What are they hauling? Do you know?
I always thought I think it's supposed to be an ore mining, like a meteor ore mining.
So they just went out, mined it, and
then they're just towing it back.
Okay.
Yeah.
I never knew what they were mining.
There's a whole guy, again, probably the same GeoCities page, where a guy compiled a ton of behind the scenes stuff of like the Nostromo and the landing sequence.
Nice.
Yeah, really cool stuff. The escape shuttle sequence where like they're dangling the alien from the back of the aliens to make the water drip down.
And that really lanky, like 7'3" guy they got to play the alien in this one, which made it. Did you ever see the
crab walk?
Yeah, the crab walk.
It's silly, but imagine seeing it coming at you down a dark alleyway. That's unsettling.
I totally get that they were like, how, because they were exploring ways that it could move that would make it appear even more alien.
Right.
And that was one of their experiments, and I think it was a failure of an experiment, but at least that they were trying.
They were clearly like, hey, did y'all see that movie with the girl whose head spins around? The devil one. Pukes up the pea soup. There's this scene.
I watched that again recently, and I read the book, and then I watched the movie. And it wasn't scary at all because of one thing. Well, actually, 2 things. One, have you seen it recently?
Yep.
Have you read the book?
No.
Did you find parts of it very confusing? where it was like all of a sudden we're in a new scene with new characters talking about something.
The
you're like,
thing that
what?
jumped out the most was at the beginning. Is it even fucking Max von Sydow at the beginning who finds the artifact? 'Cause
In the book?
In the movie.
Yeah.
In my head, it was always Max von Sydow finds the Pazuzu statue in the
Yeah.
middle of the desert. It is him.
Yeah.
Okay, because rewatching, I'm like, is that him? Is this some random third character?
No, that's the dude.
It's Father... Fuck, what? I used to know his name. I was obsessed
I
with it.
just read this book and watched this movie like 5 months ago, and I forget what his name is. Father something. There's so many priests in it, though.
Yeah.
I don't remember.
Not so much. That was the only thing that jumped out at me when I watched it the second time. I was like, wait. Why is Pazuzu in this movie, and why does he show up as a silhouette at the end? Did they just unearth the devil? Is that what it's implicating?
Did you watch the director's cut or the original cut?
Original.
Did the original cut have like 5 minutes of footage of him just walking around Morocco at the beginning? That's in the original cut?
Yeah.
That felt really unnecessary to me.
Me too. Yeah, I remember watching.
I thought that was a director's cut thing.
I was like, I don't remember this at all.
No.
And I'm 90% sure I downloaded the original. I mean, streamed the
downloaded it after purchasing it in the PlayStation Store.
I meant downloading from as a stream.
Yeah, it's stream service.
Stream download. Legal.
Legal, totally legal. I only saw the director's. I've only seen the director's cut, so that's why I was wondering if that weird, like for no reason, 10-minute shot of him just wandering around is in the original. Or not.
Director's cut has the crab walk.
I think both have the crab walk.
Okay.
Down the stairs, you mean?
Yeah.
That's a horrifying scene in the book too, where the babysitter, who's not really in the movie.
Oh yeah, I guess not.
Yeah.
She's in like that one scene.
She's in one scene. Well, that's the thing. Is I read the book and I kept finding moments in the movie where I'm like, they've just had an offhanded line that has like a chapter of backstory to it, but they don't explain it at all. So I wonder if this is as confusing. If this would be more confusing if I hadn't read the book.
Yeah, I kind of chalk it up to like, again, everything comes back to Star Wars. Whenever Han's just like ran to a bounty hunter on Ord Mantell, I'm like, okay, we're just peppering texture into this
texture
universe.
into it, but it's all explained in the novel.
Ah.
And I think again, I didn't really. I was expecting to be so horrified because demons and things are the things that scare me in horror. I don't really care about masked men and shit.
Yeah.
But I wasn't terrified at all, and I think a big part of that was that I knew Pazuzu wasn't a bad guy. Pazuzu is the demon that protects people from other demons. That's why people in Babylonia or in the Fertile Valley back then, what is it, Assyria or Babylonia? It's one of those ancient cities. Would wear the Pazuzu charm because he was a demon that fought. He was like the Wolverine of demons.
So is the implication at the end when they show his silhouette that he's protecting Reagan, or is it just like we didn't know what this was?
I think they just. I think
It looks spooky.
Yeah, it was a Mesopotamian demon. I think he just looked up Mesopotamian demons, and
Gotcha.
Pazuzu sounded the coolest.
Yeah.
Because in the list they're all ridiculous names, and Pazuzu does stand out because I only had a handful of them.
Okay.
But he was like the demon of like drought or something. But then he would also fight other demons so that he could demon it up. So he was like a protector, also scary thing. So he would stop the other ones, but then you're gonna get a little drought or whatever. He was a demon of.
Okay. Yeah, I was. You know what was great when I rewatched that? Now I'm on The Exorcist. When I watched that one, I also watched a bunch of behind the scenes stuff, and one of the things I found was a news report. Like, fans are freaking out at the... I have to say freaking out. Nearest movie theater for the latest horror movie. A film about the devil called The Exorcist. And it was... The reactions of people getting pulled out of the theaters, fainting and fanning themselves. My personal favorite, there was one woman, and she was like, what point were you just unable to take it anymore? And she's like, when she just started talking in that voice, I just...
Let Jesus fuck you.
I was like, it wasn't her like raping herself with a crucifix. That it was the spooky voice that got you. Like, what the hell? Like, you got weird values, lady. But either way, like, that must have been mind bending back then. Just being, you could put this in a fucking movie.
Well,
Jesus.
I'm always wondering about stuff like that though, because the last thing we've seen like that was the Blair Witch Project, and that was just marketing. People were getting sick because of the shaky cam.
Right.
Remember they had all the footage of people throwing up, saying, it's the scariest movie ever. Look at people puking in the theater, and it turned out just to be motion sickness. So I always question that. I'm like,
There was one guy sitting next to my dad telling me the story when he saw it in theaters. A guy fainted.
Really?
And it was during the surgery scene where they tapped that wire into Reagan's neck.
Oh,
and
the completely useless,
Yep,
pointless
he
surgery
just
scene?
felt a hand clamp on his knee, and he looked, and the dude was going out. So him and his buddy had to drag him out of the theater.
That was, she was getting a CAT scan.
That's
That
right,
really
yeah.
made me laugh, because in the book she just goes in and gets a CAT scan, but they just wanted it to be visceral and violent. You don't get a throat tube.
That's exactly what I was thinking rewatching that scene. Like, what procedure are they doing? You can't put a metallic tube in an MRI. Like, what are you doing?
No, you don't do that at all. They just wanted that visual of like, oh my god, her throat's bleeding. On the topic, we veered off a bit, but on the topic of The Exorcist, did you see the devil and father Amorth or Ameth, I can never pronounce his name, but it's the director of The Exorcist. Filmed The Real Exorcism.
Ooh.
And it's hilarious because, first of all, apparently, we're all kind of in our head, because the Catholic Church still completely allows exorcism.
Oh yeah,
if they meet the standards.
They have to. Yeah, they practice it totally.
And that movie is like a guidebook for what they need. They need to speak in tongues. They need to have knowledge they weren't aware of. Blah 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 blah. But the two things that were hilarious about this documentary, which seemed like complete, I'm never more convinced that exorcism is just a form of schizophrenia.
Yes. Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Because the woman was completely fine and normal. It's just like, hi, I have a demon in me. Can you help me out? This is my 9th exorcism. And then when the priest started like doing his thing, she started and everything. Again, total like just manipulated with the power of suggestion, basically. Right. But on top of that, they digitally altered her voice.
Oh Jesus!
Which
Christ.
is, you don't fucking do that in a documentary.
Yeah.
So that when she was the devil, she was actually like, right. But then everyone was like, oh my god, is this real? This proves exorcism. But then one of the editors leaked the original footage of just her yelling. So you don't fucking do that. And then the climax of the movie is hilarious because it's like, and the final time I saw this woman was the most horrifying experience ever. I forgot to take my camera with me, but I'll tell you the story.
Boy, oh boy, was it terrifying.
Yeah, he apparently met her in a church and she started like climbing the walls and hissing and stuff.
Of course.
Yeah.
And then Jesus came out with a sword and fought her. And
it made no sense because he was already like scheduled to meet her to perform an interview, and she called him and said, come meet me here instead. So for him to not have his camera with him doesn't make any sense.
Worst documentarian ever.
So it was just complete bullshit, and it was hilarious. It's on Netflix right now, so if anyone has Netflix, check it out.
Was it Sacha Baron Cohen's? No, I remember now. It was Nathan For You with Nathan Fielder, and he found an exorcist. Was it an exorcist or someone who expels demons? Mm-hmm. And the whole thing was. It was like he had some sort of like erectile problem, so he was making the dude like, this is a legit. Oh, I remember now. They had to. He was talking to a realtor, and the realtor was finding that a lot of places that she saw to have more success. Nathan Fielder looked up people like houses that have like haunted mysteries to them.
Right.
So he was like, what we're going to do to boost your success is have an exorcist come in and do a reading on the house. So, anyways, the long short of it is, by the end of it, the woman, the realtor. And this is not an actor. This is the person who came to Nathan Fielder to help her, quote unquote, with her business.
Okay.
Is like, I sometimes have feelings myself. Could you do that on me? And the guy's like, yeah, sure, of course. So he puts her in the chair, and this woman's like a 56-year-old. Looks like an older. Imagine like an elementary school teacher. She's got the sweater and the floral dress and like the bouffant hair.
Canasta chain on her glasses.
Yeah, imagine like the secretary from Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
Okay.
What a little asshole.
Yeah.
She's in the chair. And this guy's like a burly cheat, like a reverend. He's getting her. He's like, getting her. He's like, get out, demon! I see you! Out! And he's like an inch away from her face, screaming at her. And this woman just breaks down and starts crying. And she's like, so he's like, get out! I see you, demon! She's like, you're expelling it now! And she's like wailing. And they pan over to Nathan Fielder, and he's just wide-eyed with this look on his face, like, please tell me you're getting all of this. Like, we didn't script this at all. This is amazing.
That's pretty awesome.
It's one of my favorite episodes.
I've never, never watched a lot of Nathan For You.
So
everyone tells me how great it is, and my only stop post for it is that I saw him on Conan once years ago, and he just annoyed me.
See, I imagine on the panel he'd be boring.
Yeah, well, he wasn't that he was boring. He's like, he was doing this bit that he didn't tell Conan about, which I'm like, oh, I get it. You're doing like shock comedy to try and throw Conan off, but also that's pretty fucking rude. Come on someone's show and do that.
Yeah.
And he was just so smug and weird about it. It just threw me off, and I haven't seen him in anything else, so I can't say if that's what he's actually like.
It kind of sounds like he was just doing an extension of his TV personality.
Yeah.
Because his TV personality is just kind of like, I'm this naive idiot who has no idea that all the ideas I pick for your business are the worst
things ever.
Like, to make your coffee company more popular, we're going to call it...
Was it not Starbucks?
Not Starbucks. And
did it go huge?
It got huge, and they got sued, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. But I think they've won. They fought and said that it was under because it wasn't filed under copyright for restaurant. It was filed under copyright for parody.
Okay.
So I think they got away with it.
That show's so friggin' fun.
I hear nothing but good stuff.
It's funny, man.
It's my own hang-up that I just saw. The first introduction to him, he annoyed me. So I was like,
Yeah.
But yeah, 1979 Alien. I think my official stance on it is that I don't think, story-wise, it broke any molds, but it just basically made Halloween or Friday the 13th but with an alien in space. Design-wise and execution-wise, it influenced every horror movie to come after it. To this day, Star Trek First Contact wouldn't exist without Alien.
Oh man, like you wouldn't have like biomechanical Giger stuff and like species and
anything at all. I finally got my hands on H.R. Giger's first run edition of the Necronomicon.
Oh, nice!
It's all beaten to hell. It was like $100, but
nice.
It was worth it. It was the first American run, so it has like a Salvador Dali introduction to it and everything.
Cool.
It's really sweet. But I want to dovetail. Actually, dovetail's not the right word, but fuck it. It's dovetail would assume what I'm about to say will tie into the beginning of the podcast, but it won't. Since this is the 40th podcast, 40-year-old movies, I just do want to have a shout out to Star Trek, the motion picture, the slowest moving, most boring, ridiculous piece of garbage that I absolutely fucking love.
Now, okay, I am a casual Star Trek fan.
You would hate Star Trek the motion picture, or you would love it. Do you like the old Andromeda strain 70s slow sci-fi?
I see. I'd have to. I'm one of those people. I just have to see it to know whether or not I'm going to like it.
It's the director of the Andromeda strain. So.
What's the elevator pitch? What's the basic plot of the film?
It's about what it means to be human. There's no villain. They fly out to meet a giant cloud that's flying towards Earth.
I do know about this one.
And the cloud ends up being the Voyager probe. And
it's accoladed like all this knowledge at this point or something. It's essentially God, right?
It's kind of like a tongue-in-cheek hint, like, again, retconned that it was the Borg, because apparently this Voyager probe went through a black hole, showed up on the other side of the galaxy. A race of machines gave it sentience and sent it off on its way. And so for the hundreds of years it's been traveling back to find its creator, it's gained self-awareness and self-consciousness, but it doesn't know what it is, why it is, and wants to know its reason for existing.
So it's like Rutger Hauer in Blade Runner. He's essentially just like, I want...
cloud.
Yeah, okay.
A cloud the size of like 6 solar systems. It's
just
fucking huge.
Cool.
But again, it's slow, it's meandering. The Enterprise literally just flies out, meets the cloud, flies back. The end. Like, that's it. And there's a good 15-minute segment of it just flying through the cloud. That's where, because ILM was working on something Muppets related at the time, so Miss Piggy and Kermit the Frog show up in like silhouettes in the weird, like...
Obscured.
No, they're pretty obvious. It's like their faces go and pass. But like, if you pause it, you go, that's the shape of Kermit. That's
okay, I thought the implication was that because the Voyager probe has become so self-aware about its culture, it's manifesting like different things like Cadillacs and the Muppets.
It's almost like how the Falcon shows up in Star Trek First Contact. Okay, it's just this tiny little Easter egg. But
hey-ho!
Yeah. Destroy the planet. But no, I love it because it's so fucking slow. You can get up, make a sandwich, come back, they're still in the same scene. It's pure 70s sci-fi because they wanted to do the opposite of Star Wars. They were like, the Star Trek's not Star Wars. And I wish someone had given that note to J.J. Abrams. But they were like, Star Trek is not Star Wars. Star Wars is about fantasy. It's about adventure, lightsabers, wizards, and magic.
It's what if.
Star Trek is what if.
Yeah, Star Trek is what if.
Yes, this is us in 300 years, so we need to make it about the human experience. And that's what I love so much about Star Trek is that the first movie was a giant space cloud trying to figure out what it means to be alive, so it wants to find God, aka its creator, to tell it its reason for existence, the human fucking struggle.
Yeah.
The second one, a megalomaniacal monster with a world-ending device. Then the third one is just get like an adventure to get Spock's body. The fourth one is fighting a giant space sushi who's trying to talk to whales, and his voice is disrupting the planet. The fifth one, they fly to the center of the galaxy to meet God. The sixth one is a Cold War era one-for-one about the Soviet Union breaking up, and except it's the Klingon Empire that's breaking up. Right. And then every movie after that has been megalomaniacal supervillain with trying to destroy the Earth. Right. And they haven't been able to break that formula, so that's now just what Star Trek is. Right. A Star Trek movie is some asshole seeking revenge.
I guess they figured out that, like, maybe movies... And unfortunately, like, because going back to the alien of it all, that is kind of what you want, is a what if. Like, what if it was in a fucking facility chasing down a bunch of people? What if there was a bunch of them and they had to fight them like an army, and it's a metaphor for Vietnam? Like, it's a shame that after that they were like, this isn't profitable. People are going to come to a movie for... So recognizability. Yep. They want a formula to it, you know?
Market research started getting big. It was after the end of Star Trek 6, which was like 1992? And then Star Trek Generations was 97. And by that point is when market research had really infested the movie industry.
So 6 is the last one Next Generation.
Next Generation. The Next Generation got 4.
That makes sense.
And then and every one of theirs, again, even the one with the Borg had a Borg queen. So even that one had a megalomaniacal supervillain.
Right.
And
the problem with that is that it's never going to end with that guy destroying the universe.
No, yeah.
He's
never going to
that
win.
way. Yeah.
So it's so disappointing that they can't. Like, I would love to see a 2-hour. Like, that's why I'm hesitantly interested in Quentin Tarantino's Star Trek.
Sure.
I would love to think that he would have the forethought to go, let's make something bizarre and unique and original.
Yeah.
Like fighting a space sushi who's going, hello, to the whales, and his hello makes the Earth shake out of its orbit.
Right.
Like, that's amazing.
Why is it trying to contact whales? I remember watching this film, but I was like, why whales?
So it's like, it is a space whale.
Yeah.
And at one point, thousands and thousands of years ago, it came across the Earth and was like, hello, and whales were like, hello, and he was like, hello, and then took off. And so whales went extinct. He came back, was going, hello, hello, but his hello was shaking the Earth out of its orbit.
I like your version of it.
Hello!
I just want someone to animate a massive cloud screaming at the
Hello!
Earth.
But that's the best too, because they get...
Finn comes out of the water and waves back.
Well, yeah, they get the whales back at the end, and he's just like, oh, hey, guys!
How do they have to go back in time, right? Is
They
that not always?
fly around the sun. They fly around the sun to go back in time.
Wait.
It makes no sense.
Because I remember vaguely watching this on TV, right? That's the one where the Klingon bird of prey is sinking in the Hudson River, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I have seen this one.
After the Enterprise blew up in the last movie, they used the Christopher Lloyd's Klingon bird of prey to head back to Earth to face the trial for stealing the Enterprise and blowing it up. But on the route, they come across this tragedy happening. So they decide, apparently it is canon in one of the old 60s episodes, that flying around the sun at a certain angle, at a certain velocity, shoots you back in time. That's, I think, when they went back to, like, the 50s or something.
I mean, if it's already in the canon...
It's
like,
in the canon.
Again, you're baying your own universe's bullshit.
Yeah.
I'll buy it.
And it's like 1 out of a million times.
Yeah.
It'll work. Every other time, you'll just blow apart from the stress of going around the sun at that angle and speed. So that's why no one else does it.
Gotcha.
But I just do love that it was contemporary times. It came out in 1984, and they go back to 1984 San Francisco. And so now it's interesting because... At the time, it was like as if Kirk came to 2019, but I love now that they go to the past.
Right.
They go from the future to the past, so now it's more of a time travel story.
Right.
Like 30 years later.
Yeah.
But it's great. I just want to hats off to Star Trek the Motion Picture for at least trying to not be Star Wars.
Yeah.
Because all Star Trek does now is tries to be Star Wars.
And again, like that's you're taking the OG cast, being like, this is their first fucking motion picture. What do you got?
What do you got?
Space Cloud.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing too, is that because they were Paramount, and Paramount made the arguably mistake or not mistake of giving Gene Roddenberry total control. So that was the first time he was able to go, all right, I get to make my fucking movie now. Because even back in the 60s show, I wanted to make this, but then studio executives wouldn't let me.
Right.
They wanted it to be a wagon train to the stars. I wanted it to be the future of humanity. So it was neat that he got to finally tell a Star Trek story, which is also kind of an episode of the original series where they meet a sentient AI bot probe who wants to destroy the Enterprise.
Are all the movies, because Khan shows up in the TV series.
One episode, yeah.
So are all the movies predicated on the show, at least to some degree?
Just Khan. Because Voyager, the same story had happened in the show, but it was a completely different probe. It was a completely different probe that got self-awareness.
Oh, Voyager, not the original series.
No, the Voyager probe from the motion picture.
I'm thinking Star Trek Voyager.
Voyager. I know, it gets confusing. Especially now with Star Trek Picard coming out. But that's a whole other can of worms to get into. Yeah, because
You're not looking forward to that?
They did such a good job on Discovery. I can't wait to see what these guys do with Picard.
But he's got a vineyard now, Carson.
Ugh. And you know what's the saddest part is? Is that Patrick Stewart's going to be the one to fuck it up. Because he's so high on his horse from playing old broken Xavier. And it's like, yeah, that works with the X-Men.
That works with Xavier.
Doesn't work with Picard. I do not want to see an old, broken fucking Picard. Go fuck yourself.
Oh, just wait till you see him covered in blood with a space shotgun. The line must be drawn here! And he shoots a dude in the face.
Apparently the idea for the story is that they're using the canon from J.J. Abrams' Star Trek, where remember how Romulus blew up in the Prime timeline, and then Eric Bana went back in time to fight Kirk, which caused the splintered timeline, and he blew up Vulcan instead.
Yes.
So this is the Prime timeline where Romulus was destroyed, and so apparently Picard led an evacuation of that, but it affected him so much, for some fucking reason, I don't know why, that he retired from Starfleet, went to work on the Vineyard, and now, like, 10 years later, 15 years later, They're bringing him out of retirement for some reason.
I had no idea it was connected to the JJ verse.
This show is, yeah.
Oh.
Just in the sense that it was the JJ verse that established that Romulus blew up in the prime timeline.
So this is the first time we're seeing... So are we to believe Eric Bana comes from the same universe that Star Trek Nemesis came from?
Always was supposed to.
Okay.
He was always... That's because Prime Spock comes back with him, right?
Oh, I guess you're right.
He was always been from...
Yeah, because you never see Old Man Spock in the Next Gen movies.
In the shows, you do.
Oh, okay.
He's working on Romulus as trying to reunify...
Get the fuck out.
Reunify the Romulans and the Vulcans because they're a sister race. It's split off.
Right.
But, yeah, I'm not looking forward to an old broken Picard. You can go fuck yourself. And though this technically can't be the Prime Universe... So they can kind of wink and say that it is the Prime Universe by having Picard in it and having elements from that.
Why couldn't it be?
Because I'd have to look up the actual exact splits, but basically Star Trek was owned by Viacom, CBS, and Paramount licensed the films.
Okay.
And then Viacom was bought out by a larger company which encompassed a couple aspects of CBS's branching industry, so more of Star Trek was moved under one roof, but it created a further divide between Paramount's license and CBS's license.
Okay.
So CBS has control over the television, some of the television shows, but then United Paramount Network aired Voyager, so they have Voyager, they have the movies.
Oh my god, what a mess.
So that's, welcome to Hollywood,
yeah,
baby.
Jesus Christ.
So that's why, I think we talked about this before, why the Enterprise has to be 25% different in the reboots. And so now this Picard series is being made by Bad Robot and Paramount, so they don't have the rights to make this set in the Prime
in
universe.
The next gen,
it has to be 25% different. So like Discovery is like they can't outright say it, but it's like a third timeline, and I'm wondering if Picard's going to be like a fourth timeline.
I'd imagine so.
Just this multiverse stupidity.
Just like Alien. Star Trek and Alien. 40 years later, what a mess.
40 podcasts later, what a mess. I think that wraps it up on old Alien. This 40th podcast.
40th podcast. That's fun, man.
God damn it. And we got 10 more until the big 50. We're going to have to do
50.
Do something fancy for that. Find 50-year-old movies. We're going back to like 1969.
I'm just going to wear a tuxedo.
Yeah. Just no one will know. Now. No one will know.
Well, it's better than when I just record it naked.
I guess it depends on who's listening. All right, felders and ladies.
We will be back next week to celebrate a 20th anniversary of a very near and dear and special movie to us all. The cinema classic and one of the most infamous.
I believe the phrase is cinematic abortion.
I don't know, man. I think I think in terms it reminds me.
Are you Temple of Dooming on episode 1?
Dude, I'm not gonna bury the lead. It's the fucking Phantom Menace.
It's the Phantom Menace.
I'll get into it next, but that movie
next.
is such a fucking hard swing.
It's bizarre.
With nothing but air. It's amazing.
It's bizarre. We'll talk about it next week, but it's so odd that all the creative control in the world was given to a man who seemed bored and lazy to write a story and not even create characters with
medieval space story.
Right? It's like, I can do anything and I kind of don't want to do it, so what toys will look good?
Yeah.
All right, we'll talk about that next week or 2 weeks, whatever. Until then, guys, check us out at spaceactionheroes.com. There you'll find everything we do. But if you're listening to this, all the way to the end, you already know that. So, yeah.
See you next week.
Bye, guys.